Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's get into the story. If you had asked me to define joy the morning of my wedding, I would have said it was the weight of a lace veil against my shoulder blades and the way my dad kept pretending he wasn't tearing up as he tried to pin a boutonniere. I would have said it was the smell of garden roses and warm summer air drifting through the old barn we rented in the Hudson Valley, the fairy lights we strung up the night before, the playlist I'd made for getting ready that had my mom swaying while she steamed my dress. I would have said joy was my best friend, Harper, tapping my phone with her knuckles and telling me to breathe because my hands were shaking as I practiced vows I already knew by heart. Harper and I met when we were 14, when a guidance counselor sat us next to each other during a group project and we realized we both liked the same weird indie band. We got driver's licenses the same week. We decorated each other's lockers. In college, we shared a dorm mini-fridge and secrets we swore we would take to our graves, the kind you tell at 2 a.m. when your cheeks hurt from laughing and you think infinity means you and your best friend in each other's wedding photos one day. She always said she'd be my maid of honor before either of us knew what that would look like. It was her idea, actually, to do the sparkler exit and to hire a live painter for the ceremony. She took charge of scheduling hair and makeup like she was producing a Broadway show, which suited me, because I like a plan and Harper loved to make one for me, and Ryan, my fiancé, my safe place, he had this way of leveling a room just by walking into it. He wasn't the loudest or flashiest guy. He was the one who remembered to pick up my favorite granola without me asking. He was the one who drove out of his way to jump my coworker's dead battery when he barely knew her. When he proposed at a park overlooking the river the October before, he said, "It's you forever," and his voice did that low, certain thing it did when he really meant something. I said yes so fast I almost stepped on the ring box. I want you to understand what that day felt like before I tell you what happened to it. I want you to see the bridesmaids' robes folded in a neat stack on the bed, the name cards I wrote by hand one night while Harper quizzed me on vow drafts. I want you to hear the laughter in the bridal suite that morning, the hotel ice clinking in glasses while my cousin tried to teach us how to tuck the corset just right. Harper moved through the room like a director, making sure we ate, making sure everyone had their lip color, double-checking that the shuttle was on time. She kept me off my phone so I wouldn't doom scroll and miss my own morning. When I looked in the mirror and saw myself fully done, dress, veil, the earrings my mom wore on her own wedding day, Harper was right behind me, our eyes lined up in the reflection. She hugged me careful around the shoulders and whispered, "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." It felt like sisterhood. It felt like the continuity of every girlhood promise we'd made. There's always static on wedding days, the kind of small chaos you register in the corner of your eye. The florist ran late because of construction. The ring bearer ate 2 cupcakes before the ceremony and crashed in the corner of the groom's suite. Ryan misplaced his cufflinks and the best man had to run back to the Airbnb. Nothing about the static felt dangerous. It felt like weather, passing through. The first moment that pinged my nerves happened after the ceremony. We'd done it. We were married. The live painter was capturing us on the hill, the guests drifting from cocktail hour toward the barn where dinner waited under Edison bulbs. The photographer took us around the back of the venue for those golden hour portraits everyone wants. Harper popped out of nowhere with my flats in her hand, rescuing me from the heels I had sworn I could handle. She grinned at Ryan and said, "Steal my best friend for 5 more minutes and I'll find you when it's time for the first dance." Ryan squeezed my waist and kissed my temple and said, "Thank you, Harp." The nickname made me pause. He'd picked it up for me during the engagement, sure, but the ease of it on his tongue made something cold touch the back of my neck. I shook it off. This was the woman who cried when I found the dress. This was the man who called my dad to ask for his blessing because he knew it mattered to me. This was joy, I repeated in my head, a mantra. Dinner blurred in that pleasant way events blur when you're smiling so much your cheeks feel sunburned. There were speeches. My father's was tender. The best man's was funny and a little chaotic. Like him. Harper went last. She told a story about our freshman year road trip where the GPS died and we got lost and ate gas station pretzels for dinner. She said she knew Ryan was the one for me when she saw how he watched me explain my job to a stranger at a barbecue, like he was learning a language he wanted to speak for the rest of his life. She teared up. I teared up. People clinked glasses. It was perfect. It was theater. It was love on display. Then, late into dancing, after the cake had been cut and I had yanked out a dozen hairpins, I realized Ryan wasn't near the dance floor. Neither was Harper. I figured they were somewhere dealing with a spilled drink or corralling the groomsmen for the shuttle schedule. My cousin asked for a picture at the photo booth. The DJ called me over for the bouquet toss. I kept looking toward the barn's side door. 30 minutes. 40. I told myself not to be the bride with a stopwatch. My dress bustle had come undone and one of the straps kept sliding. A coordinator adjusted it with brisk, practiced hands. I asked if she'd seen Ryan. She said last. She noticed, he was by the service hallway near the kitchen. I almost headed that way when the DJ started the next song and my aunt grabbed me, insisting on a dance. I let myself be pulled back into the party, the way you do when you're in a wedding day trance and you believe everyone around you is orbiting safely in your gravity. When Ryan reappeared, he was flushed and smiling. Harper walked behind him with 2 glasses of champagne. She handed me one and bumped her shoulder against mine like she was reminding me we were still us in the middle of this spectacle. I asked where they'd been, a light question so the concern inside it wouldn't show. Ryan said, kitchen emergency. The venue ran out of ice and I helped. Harper added, the bridesmaid's room needed a safety pin, crisis averted. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was an easy answer spoken so rehearsed it felt like a line in someone else's script. We did the sparkler exit under a corridor of light and cheers, then slipped into the car that would take us downtown to the hotel. People pressed notes into my hands, room numbers for brunch, texts about after parties we'd never make it to. The car door closed and the quiet fell around us like a quilt. I thought we'd finally have the little cocoon you imagine at the end of the wedding machine. But in the hotel room, Ryan seemed oddly distant, like the momentum had dropped out from under him. I chalked it up to exhaustion and champagne and the way a day can wring you dry. We curled up on top of the covers, half-dressed, and fell asleep. With the TV still on mute, we flew to Maui the next afternoon for our honeymoon. It should have been a highlight reel, the ocean like a cliché on purpose, the breakfast with macadamia pancakes, the way the light makes everything look like a music video. Ryan took pictures of me on the beach. He put his hand on the small of my back when we walked through the lobby. But there was a distance in him I had never felt before, the gravitational kind that pulls everything inward and leaves you just outside the event horizon wondering what you did wrong. He started taking long showers at night and longer walks in the morning. His phone sat face down on the side table like it was embarrassed to be seen. When I asked if he was okay, he said he was just processing how big the wedding was, how many people, how much attention. He said he was tired and grateful and overwhelmed. The words sounded right, and yet they fell wrong. On the 3rd day, I woke up to the sound of his phone vibrating against the glass tabletop. It wasn't a sound that invited you to look. It was a sound that asked you to pretend you didn't hear. I lay there and told myself I trusted him, because I did, because that was the cornerstone of what we'd set out to build. The vibration kept going, a steady drumbeat, and something in me, a small voice I had ignored at the barn's side door, opened its eyes. I reached for the phone. The lock screen lit with a preview of a message that took the breath right out of me. I can't stop thinking about last night. Are we going to pretend it didn't happen? The contact name wasn't a name. It was a heart emoji and an H. I don't remember standing up. I remember my fingers going cold and my feet feeling like they didn't belong to anyone. I clicked through the notifications with hands that did not look like mine. There were messages going back to the week before. The wedding. Not explicit in ways that would make this part unlistenable, but explicit in a way that made meaning unavoidable. There were logistics that only made sense in the context of my wedding day, timestamps that lined up with the stretch when they had both been gone. There was a message from just after midnight, a photo of the hallway outside the kitchen where staff staged dishes, the caption a whisper written in text, I locked the door. It was thrilling and horrifying to see how mundane betrayal can look in a gray bubble. I put the phone down and walked to the balcony because the air felt thinner inside the room. I stared at the ocean and thought about the vows I had spoken to days before, about the way Ryan's eyes had held mine while my dad's voice caught on the word daughter. I thought about 14-year-old me making friendship bracelets on Harper's bedroom floor, about the night we made a Pinterest board. Before we were even dating people we would marry. I thought about how my wedding dress was still in the garment bag hanging in the hotel closet and whether I could ever look at it again without my stomach turning. I didn't wake Ryan by shaking him. I didn't throw the phone at him. That's not my style. I sat on the edge of the bed and said his name, and when he opened his eyes I said, I saw the messages. He didn't pretend not to understand which ones. He didn't ask me to clarify. He sat up slowly like an old man and said, Elle, I'm sorry. He reached for me, and I stood, the movement small and enormous at once. I asked, was it at the wedding? He nodded. I asked, was it just that night? He swallowed. He said, it only happened once. He said he had been drinking and it was all a blur and he didn't know why he did it. He said the kind of sentences men say when they want a moment to sound softer than it is. I asked, how long have you been talking to her like that? He said, a few weeks. He said it started as planning support and then he trailed off. He said he loved me. He said he had just made the worst mistake of his life. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the ring. Instead, I went to the bathroom and turned on the light and looked at my face because I needed to memorize what I looked like at the precise moment my life split in two. I was very calm and very young and very old all at once. I came back out and said, I need you to book me a different flight. He stood, panicked, and asked where I would go. I said home. He said we could talk. I said I wasn't going to talk to him on a honeymoon about how he slept with my maid of honor at our wedding. There are some sentences you think you will never have to say. There are some rooms you will always remember yourself speaking inside. Because the acoustics of your own voice are so strange. I texted Harper from the airport because I wanted her to know I knew before she saw it on my face. I wrote, I saw the messages. I know. She responded fast, like she'd been walking around with her phone in her hand. She wrote, Elle, I am so sorry. It wasn't supposed to happen. I told her I wanted to hear her say it out loud, to my face. She said she would meet me at my apartment as soon as I landed. When I walked in the door, my best friend was already on my couch, the key I'd given her years ago sitting on the counter like evidence of a crime. She looked small and guilty and still somehow like herself, which felt like an additional betrayal. I sat across from her, my dress still damp at the hem from airport rain. I said, start from the beginning. Tell me all of it. Tell me everything, because if you lie now there's no coming back from anything ever again. She started crying by the second sentence. She said it started with excitement, planning the wedding together, spending time with Ryan to pick up favors. To meet with the DJ, with me always nearby or in the next room. She said she didn't realize she was flirting until she did. She said she told herself it was nothing. They had texted more than they should have, she admitted, inside jokes attachment. Does not entitle you to. She said the night of the wedding, after the speeches, she went to find the coordinator about the sparkler exit and Ryan was there, leaning against the cooler, and they started talking, and 1 minute they were laughing about the best man's speech and the next they were in the service hallway with the door closed and she doesn't know what she thought she was doing, only that she had never felt so desired and so horrible at the same time. She kept saying, it was a mistake, like that word could hold the weight of what she was telling me. I asked her if she had feelings for him. She nodded, small. It was worse than a yes. She said she hated herself for it. She said she had never wanted to hurt me. She said she did hurt me. She tried to reach across the coffee table for my hand and I recoiled like I'd been burned. I told her that when you are the person standing behind me holding my veil while I walk down an aisle, there are rules even drunk in temptation do not erase. I told her I would have chosen her at 100 different forks in the road. I told her she had detonated my wedding day like a paper city. You know what I didn't do? I didn't ask why me, as if my goodness or badness could have altered their choices. I didn't ask her to help me understand because I didn't need to understand to decide what to do. Some things are so simple they appear complicated. She slept with my husband the night of my wedding. That's the sentence like a steel rod down the spine of the story. Everything else is noise. The next morning I called a lawyer. I asked about annulling the marriage. He explained the difference between a word I wanted for symbolic reasons and the legal realities in our state. We started the process that leads to divorce. I felt 13 and 70 at once as I walked into his office with a folder labeled Ryan in my hands, like I had compiled a report on my own life. I told my parents. My mom cried in the way mothers cry, like every version of me. Throughout my life had been hurt at once, the baby, the second grader, the teenager. My dad's face went still in a way I had only seen the day his mother died. He wanted to fix it, and he couldn't. My phone filled with messages from people who love me and from people who love gossip. I kept the circle small. I told them what happened, and then I asked them to stop asking me what I would do next. I didn't know. My therapist said I didn't have to know. She said, sit inside the truth before you build on it. Ryan wanted to talk. He wrote emails with paragraphs about sobriety and remorse and surrender. He stood in our kitchen and cried into his hands. He told me he would quit drinking, that he would find a counselor, that he would do anything. He said he had been lost in the performance of the wedding and reached for the closest thing that made him feel real. The sentence sounded like poetry someone writes on a napkin and then throws away. He said he loved me and that love didn't disappear because of a single night. I asked him why he had risked our entire life for a single night, and he said he didn't know, and he said he was ashamed. I believed him on that last part. Shame poured off him like a second skin. It just didn't change the math that I met Harper one more time. I asked her to bring over everything of mine she still had, hoodies, books, a necklace she borrowed and never returned. She walked in holding a box like she was delivering a peace offering in a war her side had started. She wore no makeup and looked like she hadn't slept. She kept starting sentences and stopping, like she knew nothing would land right. She apologized again. She said she would spend the rest of her life trying to make amends. I told her I hoped she would spend the rest of her life making different choices. I told her I believed in redemption, just not in proximity to me. I told her I was blocking her number and asked her not to contact me, not because I wanted to punish her but because my nervous system needed space to remember what safe felt like. She cried. I didn't. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do for yourself is refuse to narrate someone else's sorrow. The weeks that followed had a rhythm I didn't expect. Morning coffee tasted painfully honest. I learned which friends could handle silence and which needed me to perform resilience. I learned there are women who will look at you like you're contagious because your story threatens a story they tell themselves about control. I learned to say, I'm not okay yet, and have people not flinch. I cleaned our apartment of the wedding detritus I had thought I'd be sentimental about for months, a box of matches with our initials, a seating chart doodled on the back of junk mail. I sent the dress to a nonprofit that remakes gowns for women who can't afford one. I cried in the post office lobby where the fluorescent lights made everything look like a bad dream. I planted a pot hose in a plain ceramic pot and watched it unfurl new leaves because sometimes you need proof that new things are possible, but we finalized the divorce sooner than I expected. The legal system efficient when the facts are not up for debate. I changed my name back at the DMV with a clerk who offered me a tissue and didn't ask for a story. I moved into a smaller place with sunlight that hit the floor just after 9 in the morning. I rearranged the furniture myself because I needed the evidence of my own strength in every room. I took long walks after dinner without listening to podcasts to keep my mind busy. I learned the difference between solitude and loneliness, and that solitude could feel like oxygen after a while.